We've given the example of the shin kicking contest. I have to say shin very slowly and pronounce it. But when you have multiple competitions and many players in there, it's akin to a shin kicking contest. Even if you win, it hurts like hell.
Go small to win big. Learn how bold entrepreneurs dominate niche markets and turn focused audiences into sustainable growth. Please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated. And for more information, visit our website at profspirit.com. Also, if you know someone who might enjoy our content, please share our podcast with them to help us grow.
The Let's Get Entrepreneurial podcast is your ultimate launch pad for igniting ideas and skyrocketing your entrepreneurial dreams. Your two hosts will be Professor Gary Palin and serial entrepreneur Ryan Budden.
Hello, Professor Palin. How are you today?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Brilliantly, as always. Today, we've gotten together to discuss a topic that we mention a lot during our podcasts. So it's about time that we had an episode devoted to it, and that's niche markets. We always like to start with a definition. A niche market is a focused, targetable portion of a broader market where customers have unique preferences, needs, or identifying factors that separate it from the general population. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I like to look at it from you'll have a total market and then it breaks into segments. For example, there's tons of products in a broad category of pet accessories, but you can do a niche of pet travel accessories.
That makes sense. I don't know much about the pet industry, but that would totally be a niche market for that because not every pet owner is really needing to travel with their pet a lot.
Another very broad market is skincare products, but a niche would be vegan skincare products.
Sure. These are good examples. Not areas that I've ever focused my brain on. So great.
Look at that. That's my contribution. Early in the morning, I'm done.
There we go. So with that sort of focus on what the definition is, there are some key characteristics that I think apply to every niche market that can help wrap your head around it. It's a clearly defined audience, right? There has to be an actual line of delineation between that niche that you're talking about and the broader market that it fits in.
And you want to understand and do your research on that specific subset of the broader market. Because I see a lot of times people will go into niches, but they haven't done their research and they haven't validated, one, the demand, but also the size of the audience. If it's not large enough, then it's not a viable niche play.
Right. And going along with that, the offering that you're offering to them, because it's a big enough market, has to be specialized. The same product that works for the broad market shouldn't really be applicable to this niche market inside of it. There might be some crossover, but it's really about specialization.
You can focus on your specialization different ways. You can do a geographic niche. You can do a demographic based on interest. That's very, very common. And also sometimes based on values, given the example I gave of the vegan skincare.
I found an interesting quote when I was looking this up, and I think it fits in here. Big brands go broad, smart brands go deep. And it's basically alluding to the fact that if you're not wanting to compete in this whole huge market, you can make the intelligent play and penetrate deeply into a niche market.
That's one of the big advantages of that. And following with that, there's typically lower competition. So fewer players fighting for the attention of this specialized market. But also you tend to have deeper customer loyalty. And there's also very often higher margins.
You're touching really well on the advantages of these unique niche markets. Less competition, and even if there is competition, the ability for you to stand out more because you're competing with 10 other brands instead of 100 other brands is a really big advantage.
We've given the example of the shin kicking contest. I have to say shin very slowly and pronounce it. But when you have multiple competitions and many players in there, it's akin to a shin kicking contest. Even if you win, it hurts like hell.
Another really big advantage is, I can't say this with 100%, but I have definitely found it to be true, that customers in niche markets often are less price sensitive, meaning you can afford to have a more robust pricing strategy because what you're offering is specialized and they care more about it.
Very often, if you're doing a niche, if you're doing a brick and mortar, you also don't have to pay as much for location because you're not relying on foot traffic as much because the specialized market will seek you out. So you're not in the premier travel area. You're therefore paying less per square foot.
That goes along with that pricing aspect of it, 100%.
That flows with what I said earlier. Higher margins are a result of the more favorable pricing conditions.
One thing that I definitely associate niche markets with is companies that are able to become the go-to brand. They've established themselves so firmly in that niche market. They're synonymous with whatever the market is.
An example of that is GoPro, because they started as a niche market. You were about to say that one also?
You stole my example there. They are the pinnacle of that, right? Nobody thinks of extreme sports and cameras without GoPro.
There are others also too, like Dollar Shave Club is an example, started as a niche market and they expanded into larger areas, but they started very niche.
Without a doubt. I definitely associate it with this. It's a little bit more of an obscure brand, but Blue Apron. So they have created this entire industry of semi-prepared meals that get shipped to your house. And now it's really blowing up.
Now you just stole my thunder. That was in my notes also.
Ah, there we go.
Great minds think alike.
I know, that's the good thing. It means we're on the same page here. We've gone over the definition of a niche market. We've gone over the advantages of that niche market. So how do you identify a niche market? How do we even get to the point where you're able to think about, is this something worth doing?
I would start off with, as I do with any business, is research. I'm looking for industry gaps. I'm looking for unmet needs. But you're looking at it with a different eye because you're looking at it from a smaller play within the larger market. So when you're researching, you want to keep that in the back of your mind. And you also have to validate the demand using Google Trends, keyword searches, social media listening. And you very much want to look at the profitability because your potential total sales are typically lower. So therefore, you want to make sure that you can not only have a profitability on a continuous basis, you want to ask questions, are there repeat sales? Can I scale this? I would encourage our listeners to match their passions and expertise with the niche they're playing in, because you need a specialized knowledge when you're in a niche.
Yeah, and it's very hard to fake. Waking up and being super enthusiastic about vegan face care products is going to be hard if that's not actually something you care about. You mentioned Google Trends. Whenever I'm talking about markets, especially niche markets, that's my go-to tool. Really easy to use. It'll give you some great information just to see if there's any interest in that topic. So I highly encourage our listeners just to mess around with that. It's a fun one.
Now, how about strategies for succeeding once you've identified the niche that you want to play in?
The early and often reach out strategy is the best. So before you even have too much time and effort into this, communicate with somebody that's entrenched in that niche. So who is your ideal customer, and go talk to one of them.
Once you've identified and you've spoken to a few people specifically, I would also then, if you get positive results, I would look at communities that revolve around that niche. Then join those communities, and then you can get feedback on a broader scale.
I want to make sure we point something out. We've said that you want to be an expert in this niche and that you need feedback. Well, let's not conflate the two of those things. You being an expert and getting your own feedback is not a good thing. You need to go to somebody else participating in this market, because I can't tell you how many times that I've been in the entrepreneurship center or talking to new first-time entrepreneurs, and they are their own expert, and that leads to tragic results most of the time. I can't say every time, but go talk to somebody else, get somebody else's opinion.
Yeah, and not your friends and family.
Right. A stranger preferably, or somebody that you have a small connection to.
And that's why I like communities. You join a social media group, they don't know you. People that don't know you tend to be more upfront and honest.
1,000,000 times compared to friends and family, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's not that they're lying to you per se, it's they just don't want to hurt your feelings.
They've got the rosy glasses on, so they think anything you're going to do is going to be successful, and that's a fantastic thing. And we often talk about community and support in entrepreneurship. It's going to help you later on when the going gets tough, but it won't help you when you're making the decision to jump in or not.
We have more insights coming up But first, here's a message worth your attention.
Welcome, everyone. Today, we're taking a focused and strategic look at company culture, not as something soft or abstract, but as a real driver of competitive advantage. We're using the Cultural Drivers of Competitive Advantage Analysis, or CDCA, a framework developed by ProfSpirit LLC. It's designed to help evaluate how well your culture supports execution, innovation, and long-term differentiation. Now, this isn't about general sentiment or vague values. CDCA measures 6 very specific drivers that impact how you perform as an organization: strategic clarity, market orientation, innovation activation, empowered execution, entrepreneurial thinking, and cultural consistency. In today's market, cultural alignment isn't a nice-to-have. It's a strategic necessity. This analysis will help you see where you're strong, where things may be out of sync, and what you can do to close the gaps between where you are and where you need to go. It's about unlocking potential, not just in individuals, but in how you lead, how you collaborate, and how you execute. So let's use this as a moment to reflect, align, and elevate. If you want to explore more about the CDCA framework or talk about how it could support your team, visit profspirit.com. You'll find tools, examples, and ways to connect with us directly. Thank you for inviting us to be part of this effort. We're here to support you, so you can lead with intention and make culture your competitive edge.
Let's get back to the conversation. Storytelling has a very specific play within this because you theoretically are an expert on this. Therefore, you can expand your knowledge through storytelling, and that's a very effective way of communicating.
It brings us to the whole topic of marketing towards these niche audiences. And you're right, storytelling is a huge component of that. With that storytelling, I find that using jargon, so speak their language basically, right? If they have specific terms that they use within that community, if they have a specific culture or a type of humor, aligning your storytelling, marketing with that can go really far.
That's interesting because very often with a broader market, you want to avoid industry jargon. In this particular case, because your target audience is also more knowledgeable about the niche, typically that jargon is something that validates your expertise.
Right. Along with that marketing, a trend I'm seeing a lot now is we're undeniably living in the era of influencers. And a lot of those influencers have really creatively captured niches. They are the influencer on whatever this is. My buddy just got into tinned fish, so it's high quality kind of fish, and it sounds ridiculous. I almost can't stop laughing when I think about this concept because it's like mixing high quality and what I associate with really low quality. But his immediate reaction to me was to pull up 2 influencers that have sort of captured this market. And a trend that I'm seeing is partnering with those influencers. So instead of you needing this whole market penetration strategy, collaborating with the influencer or bringing them on somehow can be really effective.
Are you telling me I could become an influencer on high quality box wine?
I'm positive that you not only could, but there are people doing it.
I'm going to look that up.
Could be a fun job.
How about risks and challenges of going into niche markets?
There are a lot of risks and challenges, first of all. The biggest one is that by definition, you're taking a big market and making it smaller. So you're limiting your customer base. And sometimes that can be risky because it's less people that have the purchasing ability or purchasing desire for whatever you're producing.
Following along with that, you can over specialize, which then limits your pivoting ability.
I found niche markets to be sort of fickle as well. They can change quickly. If there's a new player that comes into the market, they can capture attention. And going along with that fickleness, sometimes your goodwill as a company, sometimes your goodwill can be put into question, whether it's appropriate or not, right? Something happens, the manufacturing mess up or a communication mess up. Well, in the niche market, I have found them to be very quick to act on those types of things. Whereas sometimes in a broader market, you can get away, you can let a little something slide.
Basically, trends fade.
Without a doubt. it's an important aspect of that due diligence process, actually, to figure out if that niche you're talking about is a trend or if it's something that's going to stick around.
Sustainability of that niche is very, very important.
Without a doubt. Sometimes that's a very difficult thing to ascertain before you're really in the market and have some water under the bridge.
For example, there are products specialized for left-handed people, left-handed scissors, etc. That is not going away.
I hope not. I'm one of those left-handed people.
You can appreciate the scissors example of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Because there's 10% of people are left-handed, something like that.
Something like that.
That's not going to change. It's not a trend that you have to worry about. Other trends, you have to be careful, because if they dissipate, then you've put a lot of time and effort into a business that's going to go away.
And that's scary.
If you do see a potential trend, but this low-hanging fruit that there's almost like a money tree in your backyard, you still may jump into that niche, but immediately I would start looking at adjacent product lines, brand partnerships, geographic expansion. So it immediately would have my eye on going in a different direction.
And make sure it's something that you don't need to develop a ton of infrastructure around. Infrastructure is costly and timely. Scaling that up to the point of good money making may be difficult if it's really going to be a trend.
And you can also look at, are there related niches that I can slide into?
Once you've developed a product with a niche, is it possible to scale? Or do niches have like upper thresholds that you kind of get pinned into?
You have to be very careful about that happening and moving in that direction.
If you're in a niche, can you geographically move while still keeping in that niche, right? If you've dominated the New York dog walker scene, can you then go to Chicago and Nashville and Charlotte? That's one way of scaling while still targeting the same niche.
My final thought on this also would be, you want to understand the audience better than anyone else, and you want to deliver what they value. Value propositions are very important in any business, but this specifically, the value proposition is critical. Focus on those two things.
That's a great final thought. I just encourage all of our listeners to consider niche markets as a viable market. Deep dive, have a look at them. They can be really rewarding because of the community that's sort of pre-developed around them.
Following up on that, my professor hat I'll put on for a second. I'm going to give some homework. I challenge our listeners to go identify one niche that they could possibly explore.
Yeah, it's a great thought experiment, if nothing else.
Sounds good.
Well, let's get entrepreneurial.
Let's get entrepreneurial.
We extend our gratitude for your presence and attention. Check out profspirit.com to discover resources and courses designed specifically for innovators like you. Stay on the cutting edge by following us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and other platforms as it is released. Until then, keep the entrepreneurial flame burning.